You who find yourselves here tonight, gathered in the quiet expectancy of mystery, I must ask, have you ever felt as though you were older than your body? Not in years alone, but in soul. Has there been a quiet ache within you, unexplainable by the mere passage of time? A nostalgia for a world you have never seen, a language your lips have never spoken, yet your heart remembers. If so, then perhaps you are what I have long called an old soul, an ancient traveler, not of space, but of psyche. And perhaps you are also lost, wandering the modern world as though it were a dream that has forgotten its own dreamer. Tonight, I do not come to give you answers for those you must wrest from the self itself, but I will offer a final message, one last symbolic key, so that you may unlock that which has long been buried beneath your persona. You see, the old soul suffers not from age, but from disconnection. The soul is not measured in chronology, but in depth. An old soul is one who carries within it the sediments of many inner lives, reflections, traumas, intuitions, inheritances, not necessarily of blood, but of archetypal memory. In this state, the soul is not bound by the limitations of personal history, but floats in the stream of the collective unconscious. And yet, when such a soul forgets its inner compass, it becomes lost, not geography. What I urge you to recognize is this being lost is not failure, it is initiation. For only those who have wandered the forest of their unconscious can emerge whole. We cannot become what we are meant to be until we have first become lost in the mystery of who we are. The world has taught you to be visible, to perform, to market a mask. But the self, the true self, asks for your silence. It pulls you into shadowed places not to punish you, but to strip away illusion. And in that darkness, the old soul. Remember, let me speak now of the dream. For the dream is the royal road to the unconscious. The old soul dreams not merely in images, but in symbols ancient, universal, terrifying in their beauty. Have you seen the crumbling tower, the faceless figure, the endless staircase spiraling downward? These are not nightmares. They are summons. When the tower falls in your dream, it is not you, life, that crumbles, but your false foundation. When you see yourself pursued by a shadowy form, you are not being hunted by evil, and that shadow, how it hungers for your recognition. It is everything you have rejected, then yet repressed. It is your anger, your lust, your envy, but also your power, your magic, your voice. The shadow is not your enemy. It is your twin. And until you turn toward it and say, I see you, you will remain divided within yourself. A divided soul cannot move forward. It loops, repeats, wanders. So many of you fear your feelings because you have been taught that emotion is weakness. And so you bury your grief, your rage, your longing deep within the caves of your psyche. But what you bury does not die. It waits, it festers, and one day it emerges not as feeling, but as fate. You wonder why you are drawn to the same broken lovers, the same empty jobs, the same quiet despair. But it is not coincidence, it is compulsion. That which you refuse to feel, you are doomed to repeat. There is a term I have used, often individuation. It is not self-improvement. It is not spiritual branding. It is the slow, sacred process of becoming who you are beneath all that you are not. It requires courage, more courage than most possess, for you must descend before you ascend. You must go down into the underworld of your psyche and meet the gods you've banished. You must sit with your fears until they tell you their true names. You must hold your own hand through madness. The lost old soul is called to this journey more urgently than others, for it carries within itself a memory of integration somewhere in some inner time. It knew wholeness, and so it aches for it. But the path to that wholeness is not through escaping this world, but by embracing its paradoxes. We live in a time that fears mystery. Everything must be explained, dissected, named, but the soul is not a specimen, it is a poem, and a poem does not reveal itself to analysis, it surrenders only to reverence. Have you noticed how the world rewards clarity, certainty, sharpness of definition? But the soul is not sharp. It is round, it speaks in images, in rhythms, in contradictions. The old soul must learn to be comfortable in the in-between spaces between light and shadow, knowing and unknowing, life and death, for it is in these liminal zones that transformation occurs. The caterpillar does not become a butterfly by climbing higher. It dissolves. It becomes unrecognizable, even to itself, and only then does it. So too must you dissolve the rigid structures of your identity. You must become lost not to perish, but to transform. And when you feel you are unraveling, know that the threads are being rewoven by hands older than your name. When you were young, perhaps as a child, you sensed things that others did not. You may have wept without cause, felt the sorrow of a dying bird, known the lie beneath a smiling face. You were called sensitive, dramatic, odd, but in truth, you were attuned. The old soul hears the ancient music beneath the noise of the modern world. And so you learned to hide it. You performed, adapted, survived. But a part of you went silent. That silence is now your invitation. Will you listen again? Will you return to the sacred frequencies of your being? Even if it means leaving behind the approval of those who never truly saw you. Let us now descend even further. Beneath the shadow lies another presence, one even more elusive, the anima or the animus, this inner figure, masculine in the psyche of the woman, feminine in the psyche of the man, is your bridge to the deep well of imagination and intuition. The anima, cloaked in symbols, appears in your dreams as the mysterious woman, the muse, the seductress or the sacred feminine. The animus, rigid and penetrating, comes as the wise man, the judge or the tyrant. These figures are not to ignore them is to lose your compass in the waters of the unconscious. But to integrate them is to awaken inner balance. The old soul cannot move forward until it reconciles the inner opposites. You are not whole until you have married your inner masculine and feminine. This union is not romantic, it is alchemical. It is The sacred conjunctio, the inner wedding from which all true creativity is born. Now tell me, have you felt lately as though you are on the brink of something, as if your dreams have become more vivid, your emotions more volatile, your solitude more painful, and yet more necessary? These are not signs of breakdown, they are signs of breakthrough. The soul whispers in discomfort. It knocks when the old life no longer fits, and when you ignore its voice, it begins to scream through symptoms: anxiety, fatigue, despair. But if you dare to listen, truly listen, it will guide you step by uns. And that forest, that dark and tangled wood of your psyche, is where your true self waits. Not the self you post, not the one you defend, but the one that was buried beneath roles and duties, shame and fear. And in that forest, you will meet the wild ones, the archetypes, the wise old man, the trickster, the divine child, the great mother. They are not stories, they are structures within your very being. These archetypes are not optional, they are active within you, whether you acknowledge them or not. And if you deny them, they will possess you. You will become the eternal victim, the tyrannical father, the invisible child. Not because you choose to, but because you refuse to integrate them consciously. This, then, is your task, not to rid yourself of these forces, but to dance with them, to know when the warrior must rise and when he must rest, to call upon the sage when your ego would act in pride, to hold the child when the world feels too cruel. The archetypes are masks of the divine, and you, old soul, are the stage upon which they perform. But you are also the playwright, and this is the paradox I present to you now. You are both the actor and the author, the mirror and the mirrored, the dream and the dreamer. The modern mind seeks to separate, to categorize, to say this is real and that is fantasy. But the psyche does not obey such boundaries. What is imagined is often more real than what is measured. The dream that breaks you open at 3:00 a.m. is more true to your destiny than the job title you list on a form. You who feel lost, you are not weak. You are awakening. The disorientation you feel is not confusion, it is reorientation. Your compass is being reset by forces deeper than ego. The self, capital S, is summoning you through strange symbols, through chance encounters, through the ache that will not leave you. And this ache, this divine discontent, is not an error. It is the spark of remembrance. It is the echo of your origin. We were not made to be machines, to be productive cogs in an endless grind of acquisition and display. We were made to spiral inward and outward in eternal rhythm. And for the old soul, that spiral is felt more keenly. You have heard the song of the soul before, and so its absence is unbearable. You cannot numb yourself as others do. You try, perhaps through noise, through busyness, through pleasing, through substances. But the ache returns because it is not pain, it is invitation. I have sat with patients who trembled with the weight of their unspoken lives. I have seen behind their words into the storm of the unconscious, where images of dragons and angels battled in silence. I have watched as they touched the edge of their own mystery and recoiled afraid. But those who returned, those who stayed with the silence, who held the gaze of the unknown, they changed. They became deeper, quieter, more alive, and you, dear old soul, must do the same. You must turn inward, not as retreat, but as reclamation. You must descend into the labyrinth, not to become lost, but to remember the way. The soul does not shout, it whispers, and if your life has become too loud, too busy, too filled with the voices of others, you will not hear it. That is why solitude is not loneliness, it is sanctuary. In solitude, the soul begins to sing again. You must allow yourself to grieve, not just the losses you can name, but the parts of yourself you abandoned to survive. Grieve the joy you withheld, the love you never voiced, the art you did not create. Grieve the moments you betrayed your truth to be accepted, for the old soul has often been shaped by sacrifice. It learned early to dim its light so others would not turn away. But now is the time of re-ignition. Now is the hour of homecoming. There is within you a temple. No church has built a sanctuary. No priest has entered. It is the innermost chamber of your soul, and there, on the altar of your becoming, lies the flame that never went out. You may have covered it in shame, in forgetfulness, in duty, but it burns still. And when you finally kneel before it, not in penance but in reverence, you will remember you are not broken, you are being reborn. But understand, this rebirth is not comfort. It is fire. It is the burning away of all that is false. The phoenix does not rise before it dies. You must be willing to let your old self perish, not in body, but in identity. You must say farewell to the masks that no longer fit, to the roles that choke you, to the dreams that were never yours. Only then can the new form emerge. And this new form is not built, it is revealed. It has always been within you, waiting for your surrender. The oak is not separate from the acorn. It is encoded. So too is your wholeness encoded in your wounds. Do not run from your pain. Study it. Sit with it. Let it teach you. Pain is not the enemy of the soul, it is its midwife. Now, let us turn to the myth, not the fables of childhood, but the deep myths, the ones that live in the bones of civilization. Prometheus, chained for bringing fire. Psyche, descending to the underworld for love. These are not just stories, they are blueprints. They are the maps of the soul's evolution. And if you are to find your way home, you must learn their language. Have you ever felt chained to something you could not name? A sadness that lingers without cause? A fear that wakes you without warning? This is the myth working within you. The old soul does not live at the surface. It is mythic by nature. Its journey is not linear but cyclical. And so you will find yourself circling back to old patterns, old questions, not because you have failed, but because there is more to uncover. You must ask yourself not what do I want to be, but what symbol am I living? Are you the martyr, the exile, the wanderer, the healer? Each has its gift, each has its trap. And only by naming the archetype you unconsciously inhabit can you choose to inhabit it consciously or transform it. For many, the world has become sterile. The enchantment has gone out of things, but for the old soul, this is unbearable. You were born with eyes that see through, and so you must re-enchant the world. You must see the sacred in the mundane, the ritual in the routine, the divine in the detail. Light the candle not just to see, but to remember. Speak the prayer not to be heard, but to become. Drink the tea as if it were a sacrament. This is not delusion, it is restoration. You are not here to fix the world. You are here to mend the bridge between matter and spirit. You are the bridge. Your very being is the reconciliation of opposites, and it is in your wholeness, not your perfection, that you become a vessel for something greater. To be an old soul is not to be above the world, but deeply within it, to feel its pain and its beauty as your own, to know that everything is connected, not as metaphor, but as reality. And so, when you weep, you do not weep alone. When you rise, you do not rise alone. The collective unconscious moves through you. And your healing is its healing. And now, perhaps you begin to understand you are not lost. You are being summoned. You are not broken, you are breaking open. And all that you have suffered has prepared you, hollowed you, so that you might become a chalice for the sacred. The final message I leave you with is not instruction, but invitation. The before you, the let go before life takes from you. Love before you are ready. Grieve what was. Bless what is. And dream what might be, not with the mind alone, but with the entire temple of your being. The soul is waiting, and it speaks in your voice. Listen now with more than your ears. Listen with your wounds. Listen with the echo that lives behind your ribs, where longing resides. For if you have made it this far with me, it means something inside you has already begun to stir the part of you that remembers who you were before the forgetting. In every old soul, there is a moment of rupture. Sometimes it is dramatic, a great loss, a collapse, an illness that breaks the outer shell. Sometimes it is quiet, a slow erosion of meaning, an unbearable sameness that becomes the soul's silent scream. However it arrives, it is sacred. That rupture is the gateway. The ego cries, this should not be happening, but the self whispers. Now we begin. The world does not teach us how to navigate thresholds. It teaches us to fix, to repair, to move on. But the threshold is not a problem. It is a place. It is the liminal hallway between lives. And you must dwell there. Do not rush. Do not seek distraction. Sit with the ghosts. Invite the gods. Feel the rawness of your unmasked face. In this sacred pause, something ancient comes alive. You see, you were never meant to stay asleep in this incarnation. You came here to remember, and remembrance is not nostalgia, it is revelation. You are remembering not just past lives of childhood, but the archetypal truth that pulses beneath every form you've worn. You are the wanderer. Yes, but you are also the flame that calls the wanderer home. And what is home? If not the return to the self, not the self that pleases, produces, or perfects, but the deep, silent self that existed before the world named you. The child beneath the conditioning, the voice beneath the noise. That self has never left you. It has watched and waited and wept in your absence. It longs not for performance, but for presence. I have often said that the goal of life is not happiness, but meaning, and meaning does not come cheaply. It comes when you stare into the abyss and do not look away. When you ask not, how do I escape this, but what is this here to teach me? When you carry your suffering like a lantern into the cave and find that its light reveals gold. The alchemists knew this. They wrote in strange symbols, in riddles and fire. They were not fools. They were psychonauts of transformation. They knew that gold is not found by avoiding the darkness, but by entering it fully, bearing witness to every stage of decay and rebirth. The nigredo, the blackening, is where the process begins. The breakdown, the dissolution, that is where you may be now. Do not flee it. Bless it. For the soul's gold is forged in that heat. And what is this gold? Truly, it is your essence, purified of illusion. It is the radiance that cannot be faked, the authority that does not dominate, the love that does not cling. It is the part of you that no longer seeks permission to be real. When the old soul reclaims its gold, it becomes luminous, not in ego, but in soul, and others feel it. They don't know why, but they sit closer. They soften. They confess things to you they've never said, because your presence has become a mirror in which they too. But beware, the reclaiming of soul is not without danger. The world does not always welcome those who no longer play its game. You may be judged, mocked, abandoned. That is the cost of authenticity. And yet it is worth everything. What use is it to gain the world and lose the soul? What value is comfort when it costs your truth? And so, when you feel the fire return, when the dreams grow stranger, when the emotions arrive in waves, let them come. Do not analyze them to death. Do not try to control them. Let them wash over you. Let them break you open. For only that which breaks open can be touched by the infinite. The mind will resist. It will ask for proof, for guarantees, for linear steps. But the soul works in spirals, not straight lines. It circles the wound again and again, each time carving a deeper truth. Trust this rhythm. Trust the dream that makes no sense. Trust the coincidence that makes your heart stop. Trust the image that returns unbidden again and again. These are the breadcrumbs left by the self, leading you back. You are not too late. You have not missed your calling. The path is not closed. It was only hidden, waiting for your eyes to see through illusion. And if you are listening now, it means you are ready. Let me speak of readiness, not as perfection, but as willingness. You do not need to be healed to begin. You do not need to be fearless to proceed. You only need to say yes, yes to the descent, yes to the unknown, yes to the mystery that you are. The soul does not demand mastery, it demands surrender. And when you surrender not in defeat, but in reverence, you will begin to see with new eyes. You will see that the pain was a teacher, that the exile was a protection, that the silence was not absence, But gestation, everything you cursed becomes blessed. Everything you feared becomes friend. Even death, when it arrives, will not be the end, but the next initiation. This is the truth. The old soul carries in its bones, life is not a problem to solve, but a mystery to live. And the mystery unfolds not in the spectacular, but in the everyday, in the breath, in the tear, in the quiet cup of tea. In the moment when you choose truth over approval, that is where the sacred enters. You were never meant to be normal. You were meant to be whole, and wholeness includes the strange, the sorrowful, the silent. It includes the broken places, not as defects, but as doorways. The cracks in your heart are how the light gets in, and that light is not always gentle. Sometimes it blinds, sometimes it burns, but it always transforms. So do not rush your healing. Do not try to fix yourself like a machine. You are not a machine. You are a cosmos. Let the stars inside you rearrange themselves. Let the constellations shift. Let the old patterns die and the new ones be born. And above all, trust. Trust not in certainty, but in presence. Trust the path, even when you cannot see it. Trust the silence, even when it feels cruel. Trust the self, which is both older than time and as intimate as your breath. Because you are not alone. You never have been, even now. As you sit with these words, echoing in the caverns of your inner world, something stirs. Perhaps it is faint, a flicker, a memory, a whisper, but it is real, and it is yours. It is the self calling you back, not to a place, but to a way of being you have always known, yet never fully claimed. The final passage of every old soul's journey is not outward, but inward, not upward, but downward into the roots. You must go down like the tree that reaches for the sky, and only roots deep enough to drink from the underground springs of your unconscious will allow you to bear the weight of light without toppling. This is why your soul led you through loss, through the dark night, through what felt like endings, because you were being rooted in silence, rooted in mystery, rooted in the truth that is older than words. And now the tree of your life may bloom differently, not with the flowers of perfection, but with the fruit of presence. You will not always be understood, but you will be real. You will not always be celebrated, but you will be whole. This is what the world needs. Not more noise, not more images, but more presence. The quiet strength of someone who has died to illusion and lives in truth. The steady pulse of one who no longer needs to be seen, because they see the calm gaze of the old soul who remembers that we are all walking each other home. Perhaps you will never become famous. Perhaps your name will not echo through time. But that is not failure. That is freedom. Your task was never to be remembered. It was to remember the sacredness of breath, of touch, of being, to remember that even in the smallest act of care, the divine moves. And that to love fully, here and now, is the greatest act of all. Let me leave you with this. There is a cave inside you. No one else can enter. In that cave is a fire. You did not light it. You cannot extinguish it. It is the inheritance of your soul. And every time you sit in silence, every time you tell the truth, every time you choose presence over performance, the flame grows brighter. And when your life draws to its close, that fire will rise, and it will become the light by which others find their way. So carry your fire with reverence, guard it, tend it, share it not for applause, but for warmth. Let it speak through your art, your gaze, your breath. Let it burn away all that is not essential. Let it guide you home. And when the time comes to cross the final threshold, to leave behind this skin, this name, this chapter, do not fear. The self is not bound by time. It is not ending. It is returning to the great mystery, to the ocean from which all souls emerge and to which all souls return. You will not be lost. You will be received with open arms and infinite love.